Hey guys, I've started a new shawl for a customer and they've picked the palette, which is purples and blues. Bella's laughing at me because this is my second take because I just told you guys all of this and then didn't record it. But anyway, so basically what I said before was when you're making a shawl like this, you have to design the warp, which is the long lengthwise threads. Are you going to stop? I'm just going to sit there giggling for the whole movie. And then you have to design the weft, which is the widthwise yarns. And so what I've decided on this one is to use a mix of merino and silk for strength for the warp, and that's mainly these. And these are going to be spun as 2-ply DK weight yarns. So we've got a petrol blue, kind of like a plum purple, and a gray. Now, I want to play with this a little bit in that almost all of it is going to be a 2-ply DK, but I'm going to save 1/3 from each braid and do a 3-ply with all the colors together just to see how they mix. Now, I've bought most of this fiber as white undyed fiber and dyed it myself, but some of the stuff I've bought, like this is pre-dyed. It's called Tanzanite, and it's 18 micron merino. And there's a couple of those, and that's mainly because I'm a new dyer, I can't quite get the saturation levels that you can get from commercial dyeing. So I'm using these as add-ins, the pre-dyed stuff as add-ins, and then the rest of the fiber I've dyed myself. Now there's a few other bits and pieces to this. So because I'm playing with texture with this shawl, I got this stuff, which is mohair, and it's very hairy. And I've dyed this myself, and this will be, I'll do some of the warp with this to add some variation in the warp. And I do not spin boucle yet. Eventually I'm going to learn, but I haven't learned yet. And this is very curly, loopy yarn. And this adds gorgeous texture, and it's very soft. Just pull it up. And I got blue and purple, navy I guess, and purple of the boucle. And that is going to be part of the warp, part of the weft, and also part of the art yarns for the weft. I did not dye those. I bought those the way they were. The rest of this on the table here, this lovely smorgasbord of fiber, I've hand dyed. And it's mainly Polworth, which is a wool, a sheep, and merino, which a lot of people have heard of, and nylon, which is a synthetic fiber, which takes acid dyes the same way as wool does, and silks, which is still a protein fiber and takes acid dyes the way wool does. So I've dyed all the braids up in various combinations of blues and purples. In each braid that I did, I kind of tended to say, okay, more purple for this one, more blue for this one. So this one would be what I would consider for, it's looking very purple on camera, but this is more for the blue side for me. This would be more on the blue side. And I've just finished dyeing some petrol blues, and they're drying, so it looks like I have way more purple than I have blue. So this one is showing up a bit more purple on the camera, but it's actually a navy. So those are a lot of the blues. And then over here, we have more of the purples. And some of them are a really big mix of just to see the color play, you know? I wanted to have fun. This is a lot of extra white. So this would have been kettle dyed, which means it's in a pot. And you pour the dyes in so they can mix and meld together. And so that's basically, these braids that you're seeing here are mainly for art bats because I'm making really fat textured yarn for this project. And with the art bats, you have a base. Like, you don't have to do it this way. This is the way I've planned to do it. You have a base, which is mainly these colors. And when I was making bats for the festival that I'm doing in May. I really fell in love with hand-dyed fiber turned into a bat. So that's why I decided to do it this way. So these are the bases, these braids, and then these are the add-ins. This is nylon, and this takes acid dye really in a really saturated way. So you get these really rich colors. And then I've put these bits of nylon in with the other fibers while I was dyeing them, so everything takes dye slightly differently. So this was dyed at the same time as this. And you can see how differently silk has taken the dye than the wool, sorry. So this is 100% mulberry silk, and I love working with silk. It gives things strength, and it's super soft. This is more for the blue bats. I don't really have any more add-ins than that because the customer asked for no sparkle. I have a tiny bit of sparkle in some of the pre-dyed fiber that I bought. Like this has a tiny bit of sparkle. And that will be really muted when I blend it. I normally go a bit crazy with the sparkle, but they asked for less sparkle or no sparkle, so I'm trying to restrain myself. So what I was saying was, I have some more blues drawing, and now I am going about playing with something called a drum carder. If you look over here, this is called a drum carder, and you put the fiber in here, and these teeth pass it onto this drum carding. Words are good. And then when you pull this off, you have something called a bat, which is what I have over here. And I'm making bats to spin from because I want to make art yarns for this shawl. And this is what a bat looks like. It is a big, hold on, I will open this and show you. I will show you all the things. So this is a bat. Quit snorting at me. And this is what comes off that small drum. It kind of poofs up and explodes, and the colors that you've blended together and the fibers that you've blended together makes something that you can then draft from and spin yarn from. I am going to video myself spinning from these. That's one that I did earlier. And here's another one I did earlier. That's purples and blues. Oh, look at that. So good.
Lord Jesus.
Yeah, fuck it. I'm just going to be myself. And this is the third one that I've done. So if it's not a warp and it is a weft, I'm probably going to make a bat out of it. Because I want this to be very textural. I want it to be fluffy, to be reminiscent of clouds and poofs. And if you've seen my last finished scarf that had a lot of texture, I fell in love and I want to keep doing that. So a lot of this is just color play. It's about picking what goes together. The goal is to make sure something doesn't turn muddy. If it turns muddy, if you blend the colors, too many similar colors together, or actually, sorry, opposing colors on the color wheel, if you blend too many of them together, you're going to make mud. So that's what you want to avoid. So that's why I'm kind of sticking to having blue themed bats and purple themed bats. But then, you know, I'm going to have great shocks of color like this in there. So I'm just going to show you how it comes off the drum carder because it's quite satisfying. You're all going to just forgive my crap film skills because I'm just showing you what I'm doing. So you need a stabby thing. And I can't find the stabby thing. Hold up. Where's my stabby thing? This is my stabby thing. And there is a gap in the teeth of the drum carder here and a little ridge underneath. And you pull the fiber up to release it. I filmed making those 3 bats there already, and you'll be able to see how I did those. And then you get this very long piece of fiber. This is called a bat. It's quite thin, so then you can spread it out, and then that helps blend the colors even more by the time you go to spin it. So this one is a blue bat, and it has black, tanzanite, I can't remember that one, I think it's called Deep Ocean, and it has some lighter blues and some purples. So I'm going to continue making bats, and when I get to the spinning, I will show you how those spin. Basically, they're going, when you're spinning, like the warp I said is going to be a 2-ply. When you pull the fiber from either from a braid or from the bat, you start to pull the fiber, and as you pull it, it spins, and then spins and spins and spins a lot faster than I can do with my fingers, spinning wheel. And then you have yarn. Can you see that? But what I'm doing with the bats is core spun, and for that I have a wool core that's lace weight, it's very thin, and this fiber will be spun around that core, making a fat fluffy yarn. And then I'm going to do all kinds of interesting things, like do coils and beehives and spiral plying. And when that is woven as the weft going widthwise, it creates all these bumps. It's going to be fabulous. I will show you everything. So when the piece is woven together, it'll have, most of the warp will be 2-ply, some 3-ply, very flat standard yarns with some of the boucle, which is the loop yarn. You remember this? And the reason why you don't put the art yarn as the warp is because it won't fit through the heddle. The piece that I pull back to tamp down the weft, if you put fluffy art yarn in there, the friction will destroy it. So you have to create a warp that can withstand the friction of being woven. But with the weft, you can have tons of fun. Like, you can add in all kinds of things with the weft, including lace, ribbon, all kinds of bits and pieces. So that's the beginning of, that's the plan, sorry, for what I'm going to do. And I'm going to try and take a bit of footage of every stage so you can kind of get an idea of what goes into making a giant shawl. The shawl that I finished for my mom was woven at 32 inches wide by, I think it was 70 inches long. I know it was 180 centimeters. I just can't remember the conversion right now. And that's basically the same size that this shawl is going to be. This shawl is going to have a lot more texture because I fell in love with that on my mom's shawl. And it's going to be a little bit less dense because I've learned how to spin the yarn a bit more fluffy, which takes out the density, which lessens the weight of the overall shawl and adds warmth because you're introducing more air into the fibers. So I'm going to show you how I make the bats next, and then film some footage of spinning and plying, and then I'm just going to spend a couple weeks making all this stuff, and I'll show you how I weave it later on. Talk to you later.